All right. I'm here with a podcast entitled Very Stable. I'm the only one here, so it'll probably be short today. There won't be a lot of discussion. But I'm very interested in the collapse of Terra Luna. What Bitcoin did had a podcast with an explanation from Jonathan Wu, which is the most detailed and most interesting explanation from what sounds like an insider's perspective of what happened here. I mean, at least a crypto insider, not a Terra Luna insider. And what happened is UST was a stable coin, supposedly pegged to the value of $1, but it was an algorithmic stable coin which was connected to a minor cryptocurrency, so that cryptocurrency would be exchanged with UST as necessary, imitating the way the Federal Reserve does it, to increase or lower the supply of UST as necessary to keep its value near $1. And this only works while there is enough value in the other coins pool to redeem the dollars for anybody who wants to sell their UST. And it worked for a while. But what happened is, in order to encourage adoption of this, they promised 20% annual interest on any money you staked in this system. So you would invest money and it would go into the pool, and then they would promise 20% annual return, which sounds insane and unsustainable. But at that time, people were promising even larger returns on other cryptocurrencies. And it worked for a while, but then came Abracadabra. Abracadabra was a project to print their coin, which they called magic internet money. And this promised even a higher rate of return, and they interacted with UST and Terra Luna. So what would happen is you would buy some UST, which is supposedly marked to $1, pegged to $1. You would then use that as collateral to borrow Abracadabra coins, which would print magical internet money. And you would then put that back in to do yield farming with the Anchor protocol in Terra Luna. So the result is you would have a recursive cycle of borrowing and then buying some more stuff with the borrowed money and then using that as collateral to borrow more. And the fundamental belief that made this appear to work is that UST was risk-free, which had been widely promised. So therefore, it was perfectly fine to borrow against it. And even if that UST was based on other borrowed money, it didn't matter because it was as good as $1. So this is very much like what happened in the 2008 financial crisis, when the established banks and credit agencies created groups of mortgages which were being sold to people who were almost certainly going to default. And they accumulated pools of these together and pretended that if you take 100 bad mortgages and make a security out of all of them put together, you now have something with a low chance of default. And they marked this as AAA trusted bonds. So people were able to use them as collateral to borrow money as if that was very safe collateral when it totally was not. So in both cases, it collapsed due to the fundamental lie being that the supposedly trusted asset had low risk when in fact it had a considerable risk. So that's the insider's perspective on what happened. Now, there is another way to look at it, which I saw in an article on Forbes, I think, on Medium, by a guy named Mind Game. He has a much simpler explanation, which I must say is pretty appealing, which goes like this. Terra Luna ran for a while as expected, and then a month or so before they collapsed, they bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin, and they said that Bitcoin will be an extra reserve to protect us in case we have a need to replenish the supply. And after that, the coin crashed, and you really don't know what they did with that Bitcoin. There's no way to tell. So his interpretation is it was all a rug pull from the beginning. They created this protocol to lure in investors, and once it reached a high market value, they exchanged a bunch of it to Bitcoin so they could just put that in their pocket and then just let it crash, which is how the rug pull works. And this happens all the time. And there is no way to prove which of these theories is true. However, it continues. Justin Sun is another cryptocurrency developer, and he is making another stable coin called USDD, which is an imitation of UST. He is trying to reproduce the whole thing again, only now he's promising 30% payout and attracting investors. And both he and the founder of Terra Luna seem to be dangerous, angry criminal types with their outrageous statements. And Justin Sun has said, someone said, what would happen if the value of your stablecoin fell? And he said, whoever asked this question, we're going to track them down and kill their entire family. That was his answer for that. So they're not very reassuring people. And it does certainly invite the rug pull explanation where you're just dealing with dangerous criminals here who are just stealing your money. And the investment part is just a scam to lure you in. That is one way to look at it. And this is the way Elizabeth Warren looks at it, that you really need to regulate this stuff, although those projects are coming out of other countries like South Korea. So I don't know what the US can do about it anyway. Solana is a blockchain, an alternative to Ethereum, which is designed to run much faster by using not proof of work, nor proof of stake, but something they've invented called proof of history. And they claim it can handle an enormous number of transactions per second. However, it has crashed 9 times this year to where the blockchain stopped moving, which is kind of outrageous. And their value has fallen by an enormous amount since they originally came out. However, they're out there. You can put smart contracts on them, and I added projects for my cryptocurrency workshop that's coming up a few days at B-Sides and elsewhere all through the summer. You can set up Solana networks because it is one of the prominent blockchains, but they certainly do seem to be going through some growing pains. Shiba Inu is a coin imitating Dogecoin, even less reputable than Dogecoin, but it turned out, I thought it was a joke when it came out that nobody would care, but it went up fairly rapidly and people have put a lot of money in it and developed a whole complicated ecosystem, and people have been taking it seriously. But the creator of Shiba Inu has vanished utterly. They created the coin under a pseudonym, and just like Bitcoin, and just a couple of days ago, the creator took down all their posts, canceled all their social media accounts, and vanished. They have now just abandoned it entirely. And so the one interpretation of this, which is the one the current maintainers of it are suggesting, is they regard it as having sufficiently started to where it can be handed off to other people. And this is how the founder vanishes to leave it to develop as it will. That's one way to look at it. In both cases, it is entirely mysterious why the founder would vanish, especially the founder of Bitcoin, who has an enormous wallet full of money that will apparently never be redeemed unless that person reappears with the private keys. And the last thing, despite all this chaos, cryptocurrency seems to be getting very well established, and Chipotle will now let you pay for your burritos in Bitcoin or Dogecoin. I have to go try that. Apparently, all Chipotle locations in the United States will now accept Bitcoin and Dogecoin. So I'm going to have to try that out and see what happens. There's a couple of privacy articles that I thought were interesting. India has passed a customer data retention law requiring everyone to record who everybody is and what they do and preserve that data for, I think, 5 years. So ExpressVPN, in response, has moved their servers out of India so they can continue to service Indian customers, and the Indian customers will have the data outside the country where the Indian government can't get at it, which is almost certainly not what the government wanted. So we'll see how that goes. They're certainly not the only country to make such requirements, but this is the fundamental issue of the internet. All you have to do is move outside of national boundaries. Now, I would think ExpressVPN would have to stop accepting money from Indian customers ultimately. I don't know how they're going to do it under Indian law, but anyway, they are not complying. And you may remember a few months ago, Apple was going to put special software on everybody's iPhone that would scan it for child sexual abuse materials and then report that to the government so they can punish you. And there was a huge complaint saying that this was an invasion of privacy, and they put that program on pause. They have not implemented it yet. although the pressure from law enforcement is large and they have not ruled out that they will implement some version of it in the future, Europe is moving in the same direction. The European Commission wants to do the same thing. They want to scan devices and private communications for child sexual abuse materials by breaking encryption. And there's an academic paper explaining why, on the Register has it, explaining why this is a bad idea. Among other things, one reason it's a bad idea is they're using something called fuzzy hashes and neural hashes. And the problem is it's very easy to defeat those. You could very easily modify images so they no longer match. And there's also a false positive where they match innocent files. So they're claiming it has technical problems in addition to the privacy invasion problems. And in the world of robots, there are two cute robots I saw. One is in response to all the mass shootings in America. There are tons, people are paying attention to mass shootings. They've been going on constantly for years. Now there's been several really high profile ones where they're shooting up schools full of kids, but just mass shootings happen more than the rate of once per day in America. And the current Republican Party is completely controlled by the far extreme. So they won't allow any laws to regulate anything about guns at all, which is certainly not the position the Republicans used to have. But currently they've gone to the far extreme. And so it seems hopeless for the government to do anything about it. So Axon has a solution. They make a drone with a taser on it. They say you can just fly this drone into a mass shooting situation and tase the shooter. You don't kill anybody. And that's their idea. Sounds like a pretty cool idea, actually, to me. And I must say a technological solution might be the only thing we can actually do in America, since our government is absolutely paralyzed and cannot possibly do anything sensible about gun control the way they do in Canada and New Zealand and such. America has a very powerful private sector and a very creative technical sector and a very successful independent free press. So those are our long shoots to try to compensate for our absolutely broken, frozen, and dysfunctional government. Anyway, there also is a contest where people are designing robot dogs to go to the moon. They are designing and proposing them, and the idea is in the 2030s, they will send these dogs patrolling on the moon to find sources of water and other valuable things in order to make moon colonies sustainable, so they can make oxygen from the water and get water to drink and grow crops from it and so on. So they're going to have roving dogs digging through the moon dust, finding the water that's necessary. So it sounds again like a pretty good idea. Probably going to happen. Our colonization of space is moving along apace, with many private companies competing at much lower cost to explore space and put up satellites and such. We are definitely living through the stage when humans began expanding to a significant extent off of our planet. So that's it for this one. And I'll be back on Tuesday with probably more of our gang here.